we have multiple Islanders trade updates and roster updates, and frankly, some of these updates are pretty concerning for the future of the team. We're going to be talking about that in this episode of Islanders Digest, and also talking about how these updates are really going to impact the season moving forward. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe to Islanders Digest. Be one of our first 100 subscribers. If you're an Islander fan and you want more Islanders content like this, be sure to subscribe. With that, let's get right into these updates. And as I said at the start of this video, I am very concerned. I am very concerned as the Islanders get closer to the trade deadline. It is increasingly looking like Lou Lamoriello is not going to make the right decision. It is looking more and more like he does not want to sell some of the Islanders' current free agents for the next season. And this is definitely concerning for the future of the team. This team is an older team. They desperately need to find a way to get some younger assets, and this would be the perfect opportunity to do so. And it's really looking like Lou Lamoriello is not interested in doing that, or at least not showing his hand so far. We know Lou Lamoriello, he doesn't like to talk a lot about trades and what he's trying to do. He likes to keep all his options open. That being said, let's get right into it. Pierre LeBrun had a conversation with Lou Lamoriello recently, talking about Brock Nelson and some other things, and I really want to focus on his conversation about Brock Nelson. In this conversation from The Athletic, it really indicates that Lou Lamoriello loves Brock Nelson as a player and wants to keep him around. Now that on its own really isn't too concerning. Brock Nelson is one of the Islanders' most valuable players. He is an incredible hockey player. I love watching him play. It would be sad to see him go. However, Brock Nelson is at the end of his contract, and as of right now, and the key thing here is as of right now, Brock Nelson is not signed long-term. And as a result, a lot of teams in the NHL looking to make a playoff push this season are really interested in Brock Nelson. However, Pierre LeBrun had this to say on what's going on in the Brock Nelson situation. He says he's kind of holding up a lot of things. There's so many teams looking for center help. And basically what Pierre LeBrun is saying is Lou Lamoriello is basically holding up the entire NHL trade, all the trades that are going to be coming for the deadline, because a lot of these teams really want to know whether the Islanders are moving Brock Nelson, and Lou Lamoriello is not showing his hand. And on one hand, it is a good thing not to show that you're too desperate to move a player. You do want to get the maximum return you can get for a player. But at this point, you really don't need to do that for Brock Nelson. Everyone in the NHL knows what type of center Brock Nelson is. If Brock Nelson does hit the market, he's going to be the top center. He's going to command maximum dollar. Whatever team gets Brock Nelson is getting an incredible player, and it seems by the fact that they're willing to wait to see what Lou Lamoriello wants to do with this player shows they are willing to pay top assets to get Brock Nelson. If the Islanders do trade Brock Nelson, they're going to be getting at least a first-round pick. Frankly, they're going to be getting a lot more than just a first-round pick, because if multiple teams are waiting on their deadline strategy to see if Brock Nelson is available, there is going to be a bidding war for this player, with young, valuable assets that the Islanders could desperately use. And let's face it, while I love Brock Nelson, he is not going to be very useful for the Islanders going down the stretch. The New York Islanders in 58 games, have 59 points. That is 1 point above NHL 500. But to be honest, the Islanders are nowhere near making the playoffs. They are only 7 points out. Yes, they do have a game in hand against two of the teams that are currently in the playoffs, the Detroit Red Wings and the Columbus Blue Jackets. However, the Islanders have to pass several teams just to have a shot at making the playoffs. They have to pass the Philadelphia Flyers, the Montreal Canadiens, the Boston Bruins, Ottawa Senators, New York Rangers. All of these are teams that are not going to go down without a fight, especially the New York Rangers and the Boston Bruins. I could honestly see them adding in the deadline, just trying to push to make a playoff spot. So for the Islanders being behind all these teams, it is not a good sign. Yeah. In a lot of cases, with a player like Brock Nelson, you could make the argument where you rent them from yourself, which basically means you know they're going to leave at the end of the season, but you keep them to try to see if you can have one last push. With the Islanders, clearly that does not make sense. Even if they do manage to squeak into the playoffs, with all the energy it would take for them just to have a huge playoff push in their last 24 games, it'd be really tough for them to try to win a series. And don't get me wrong, I really want to see the Islanders make the playoffs. I love NHL playoffs. It just does not seem likely that this team is going to make it, and it really does not make sense to hold on to Brock Nelson and risk losing him for nothing. Now, my stance completely changes if Lou Lamoriello tries to sign Brock Nelson. If the Islanders get Brock Nelson under contract before the trade deadline, I am perfectly happy with keeping him. Yes, he is an older player. I do think he's going to age pretty well, and I just love watching Brock Nelson play. However, as of right now, there really have not been many contract negotiations. Maybe there have been more negotiations coming behind closed doors, but from what we've seen, it seems like Brock Nelson is interested in trying out free agency. And if that's the case, I have no issue with that. He has been a lifelong Islander. If he wants to see what else is out there, especially as he's getting older, trying to find a position where he can win, I think that is perfectly okay. But then the Islanders have to get assets from him in return. They've been in this situation before where they've lost a player for nothing. Look at how much losing John Tavares hurt the Islanders in terms of losing assets. They cannot do that again with Brock Nelson. Now, kind of related, there are other trade rumors related to the New York Islanders. Stefan Rosner, in his last tweet, tweeted that from what he's told, the Los Angeles Kings are interested in Kyle Palmieri. And this makes a lot of sense. If the Islanders are going to sell, Palmieri is a very valuable player to have. Take a quick look at Kyle Palmieri's stats, see what he brings to the table. Now, he is not as valuable as Brock Nelson. As I said in the Brock Nelson portion of this video, I think Brock Nelson would at least command a first-round pick. He's probably commands a lot more than just a first-round pick. Kyle Palmieri, on the other hand, I think I would be happy with a second-round pick. And to be honest, regardless on what Lou Lamoriello decides to do with Brock Nelson, now he hasn't made Kyle Palmieri available. That's something he seems to continue to be doing. He's just not really talking about what he's going to do on this deadline. And frankly, that is pretty concerning considering that the deadline is less than 8 days away. The deadline is coming up, and Lou Lamoriello is going to have to... You have to shop these. If you're going to trade these players, you have to start shopping them soon. If you're going to want to have these bidding wars, have teams giving you the best they can give for these players, you got to tell them that they're available. And for a player like Kyle Palmieri, I don't think you're going to get a first-round pick, but you can definitely get a second-round pick. And with his injury history, when I go back at his stats, he hasn't been too injured this season. But in the past, last year he was out. In the past, he's missed a couple games, several seasons. And at this point in his career, 33 years old, I think regardless of what the Islanders decide to do with Brock Nelson, it would make sense to move on from Kyle Palmieri, really get this team younger on the wing. That being said, Lou Lamoriello is not showing his hand. He's refusing to let teams know whether or not he is interested in trading Kyle Palmieri, and definitely concerning for the New York Islanders. Now we're going to talk about some of the Islanders' roster moves. In addition to all this trade speculation, the Islanders really have been jumbling their roster around, trying to find some magic in a bottle, and I really do not like the look at what the team is this week going into their game tomorrow against Nashville. So you have a look here. It seems like Patrick Waugh has taken Maxim Sipkov out of the lineup in exchange for Pierre Engvall. Now, at first, Pierre Engvall looked a little beat up in the previous game against the Bruins. I was wondering if maybe he was injured. Patrick Waugh reiterated that this was not an injury decision. He wants to give Engvall some time in the lineup, and this is definitely concerning. I want to see Sipkov in the lineup every single day. He's a younger player. He does make some mistakes, but he clearly provides more value than Pierre Engvall. And honestly, even if you do want to bring Engvall back into the lineup, I really don't hate Pierre Engvall as a player. Why is Hudson Fasching playing on the third line instead of Sipkov? Why is Ciziquez playing on the third line instead of Sipkov? Why is Gakholm playing over Maxim Sipkov? I don't have any issue with any of these players, but Sipkov is a player who, has shown physicality. If this is going to be about physicality, Sipkov will make a better player on the fourth line because of his physicality, but he's also shown some offensive potential. He has struggled a little bit in the past game. Maybe Patrick Waugh here is trying to send him a message, and if that's the case, maybe this is not the worst decision. Sometimes a young player does need a little kick in the butt. However, I really do not like the idea of taking him out of the lineup, especially when the Islanders are trying to win every single game they possibly can. This is not earlier in the season where you can teach a player a lesson here or there. The Islanders really cannot afford to lose another game out of any mistakes if they're going to make the playoffs. If they're going to try to make the playoffs, which if Lou Lamoriello is standing pat on the deadline, that is what they are trying to do. You really can't be sitting players. Now, on the other hand, I do like what the Islanders are doing with their defense. We have Adam Boqvist playing again. I think Boqvist has been really good for the Islanders, so he's going to be playing instead of Scott Mayfield. It's really tough to see Scott Mayfield out of line. I do think he brings some good physicality when he's healthy. He did not look 100% when he played the other day. I think this is definitely a good decision. And now, finally, we have some other interesting news on the New York Islanders. Mike Reilly has been cleared for contact. This is incredible news for the health of Mike Reilly. Earlier this season, he's missed significant time because of a heart procedure. After suffering a concussion, they discovered a heart procedure, a heart condition for Mike Reilly. And it is really good news to see Mike Reilly is healthy again. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Islanders do down the line. Now they're going to have 9 healthy defensemen. As we can see in the lineup, Scott Mayfield's not playing. You also have Scott Peronovich, who's not playing. It's a shame that he's not playing. But the Islanders just seem to have so many defensemen now. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. There's no way they hold on to 9 defensemen. So while I'm just happy that Mike Riley is healthy, some moves are definitely coming on the Islanders defense as they try to figure out who are they going to keep on the lineup. Maybe they're going to trade someone. We'll see what happens. Lou Lamoriello is keeping his keys really tight to his chest. He's not really telling anyone what's going on, and it's going to be interesting to see. It's a little concerning as a fan. This is definitely the most nervous I felt for a deadline in a long time, just because in past deadlines, while the Islanders haven't done much, there really was not much to lose. This year, if you lose Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri for nothing, the Islanders are really leaving a lot of value on the table and really hurting their future long term. That being said, let me know what you think in the comments. Are you concerned that Lou Lamoriello really doesn't even seem to be considering trading Brock Nelson? Do you think the Islanders should trade Brock Nelson? And what do you think the Islanders should do with Kyle Palmieri? I'm really curious to know your thoughts below, so let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and let's go Islanders.